Now we got a hood from Everything Chrome Parts, and I like it because it's a little more aggressive. It's got a step-up cowl hood on it versus the stock look. It's just going to look tougher, more aggressive, something you want on the job site.
And it's a real easy mod. You know, you can do it in a short amount of time. It's really inexpensive, but it can change the look, make your truck unique. Yeah. But you know what? This hood doesn't come in this color. Right. So we've got to make that changeover.
Yeah, and you can't just automatically start sanding it, priming it, and throwing it on, right? You want to make sure you do a couple steps prior, making sure the truck hood fits proper on your brand new ride.
Yeah, you know, obviously you're going to look to make sure that it's the right hood for your truck, but then you're going to start looking at the details. We're going to bolt it on and start looking at the gaps. Make sure when you set it down, you adjust it. Make sure that it's going to be right, so after you've painted it, you don't go put it on and all of a sudden you've scratched it, it doesn't fit right. So let's start step number one before we get too carried away and start checking this thing out.
Eliminate those headaches first, right? Okay, one of the first things you want to do when you're fitting your hood is tape off all the corners and protect it, because you're going to get in here, finesse this thing, especially in these back corners. That way, if it slides off your hand or you're sitting there trying to do 2 or 3 things at once, you know these corners are pretty protected.
Yeah, now we're going to slowly drop this hood down. We don't have any of the hydraulics or springs on the hood because we don't really need them for just check and fit. And we're going to start watching that corner back there as we go down. I'm going to be listening for Willie to scream if we're getting close to the edge.
I'm looking pretty good.
Yeah, my side looks all right. Hey, man, how about you?
Not bad, man.
Not bad, not bad, right out of the gate. I'm a little loose over here.
And I'm a little tight up here, so we could loosen up just a little bit, kick it a little sideways.
All right, so that's pretty easy because, you know, you've got the 4 bolts there, and you can slide this hood around a little bit and you try to, you know, equalize the gaps. You don't have to get anything perfect. All it's got to do is kind of look normalized all the way around. Now, the one thing I see is we're a little low here. Right. So what we can do.
A little low here is just the bumpers.
Yep, we got a little bit of these little bumpers so we can raise them up and dial that in. Let's give that a try. Yep, so we're getting closer. Better. So we can keep working this thing, and you know, if you can't quite get it with just the hood, you can start working the fenders. Especially when you're putting a whole car together, what you're gonna do is you work the hood, the fenders, the doors, and you're going to move everything kind of around until it all looks good. There's quite a bit of an art to it.
Yeah, it's a little finesse here, a little finesse there, 1/8 of an inch up here, a little lower here, and sooner or later you'll get everything balanced, fit, where you get that nice little line. It's all parallel on every adjacent corner.
Now the new stuff is pretty good quality. Yeah. So the newer cars, it's pretty easy to, like this one, almost just drop it on. On, you know, a lot of older cars, and you know, sometimes you get these cheaper repop stampings, and you're going to have to get a little angry with it. Yeah. You know, you're going to have to push on the door, and you know, maybe you'd put a 2x4 under here. Be careful and just kind of reshape an arc or something. But you know, just be careful. But sometimes, you know, anger makes things happen.
Makes it worse.
All right, so we've got just a little bit more adjustment. We can tighten our screws down in there, recheck everything. So let me grab my little ratchet. I got mine. And let's shift this thing over just a hair. All right, that should be tight. Let's see how we did. All right. I'm good, I'm good, I'm good.
Good. Mine tightened up nice.
Tweaked out? All right. Good. All right, we got this thing pretty much where we want it to be. Now, if we just go pop it off and go paint it, we got to start it all over again.
Right.
So
that's why you want to make sure you index the brackets. All right, it's always good to use a drill bit.
I've got an 1/8 inch bit, and by drilling straight through, I've got a hole matching from bracket, you know, to hood. So when we go to put the hood back on, I can take the bit, flip it around, stick it up through the hole, locate the hood to here, so the hood goes right back to where we had it just now without having to go through the fuss and potentially scratch the paint. So I'm going to put one on each side. We're ready to pull it back off. Now start our sanding process. Hey, all right. Now we did all our mock-up. We feel really good about how the hood's going to sit on the truck. Now we're doing that first step of sanding. So I'm going to hit everything with about 320. I've already got primer on here, so I can pretty much scuff it, get a nice little mechanical surface to start laying down my layers. Now before I went and, you know, started sanding on it, I wiped it down with, you know, wax and degreaser so that I don't take any oils that are on there and sand them into the hood itself. Then I can go through and start my scuff process. Now I don't want to get my DA in some of these hard areas or on the edges because I'll take that primer right off. So I can use something like a Scotch-Brite pad, and they come in basically different grits, you know, like a 400-ish to a 600 grit. And what I can do is I can work that pad, you know, fold it however I need to, get it in here, work all those little corners and edges without breaking through the primer. And that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna go around, I'm gonna make sure I've got all the little nooks and crannies. This thing is ready to start coating.
And these Scotch-Brite pads come in super handy. The red's about 400, the gray's about 600 to 800, and there's white that can come in up to 1,000. So
yeah, and they've even got these new Scotch pads with foam backing on them.
Yeah.
And what's neat about them is when you're sanding, a lot of times your fingerprints can push a lot harder than in between. So the, you know, the foam pads and the way you fold over the Scotch-Brites can keep from leaving your finger marks in there.
that's great, man. But you know, the problem with this is I never ever get a hood in this good a condition. Like when they arrive at my house, man, it's always, you know, it's much different. It's about like that.
Hey, man, this was gonna be an easy job, dude.
Yeah, it was. It's just a little pucky there. So let's get after that, right?
Yeah, well, we know that, you know, you leave something around your shop, your kid's gonna hit it with the bicycle, it falls over, so.
Or a hammer.
We're creating a little more real situation. I guess you know what we're gonna be working on when we come back from break, so stick around.
Come on.
Man, I'm glad you didn't have a bigger hammer in your hand when you made that ding.
It's not that bad, but you know all about some of those magical mystery dents that just all of a sudden appear on your car and you're like, what?
Yeah, well, here's a little ding, just an easy example of how simple it is to fix some of these things. So we're gonna flip this thing over so we can get better access with the hammer dolly.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so, you know, get yourself a nice little stable working surface there, and Willie's gonna bring out the big tools.
Right? Now, what happened when I hit it is I stretched that metal so it bent and stretched this way. Now that we flipped it over, I'm gonna address that stress, if you will, that we put on it. So this is a flat surface. I found the flattest hammer that I could get for this surface, and they come in all kinds of hammers. You can find shrinking hammers, stretching hammers, and so forth.
Yeah, so he's gonna support the bottom half, you know, and because we flipped it over, the pockmark is standing up this way. And what he's gonna do is actually compress and shrink those molecules back, and he's gonna shrink them back down until it's flat. And you can kind of hear the different sounds as you're banging. It'll be a little more hollow, and as the metal actually collapses, and I sandwich it between the hammer and the dolly, you'll hear a higher tink sound. And that's when you've got the thing pretty flat, you keep feeling it. Now you gotta be careful, because once you're flat, and once you actually start smacking the flat metal, you're gonna thin it out.
Right.
It's gonna stretch.
A good rule of thumb is when you hear that ding, right, through that metal, is move on just a little bit, because you know you got a good lick on it, and you can heat up those molecules and keep that bend and keep it coming out.
Yeah, now because you're flattening the metal when you bang on it, it's stretching. The ends are constrained, so it's gonna start bowing up. So you're gonna actually stretch the metal out, and you're gonna have a high spot if you're not careful. So that's feeling pretty good. All we gotta do now is flip it back over, work it down a little bit, put a squeegee on it of a little bit of filler. It'll never happened.
Right, never happened.
Let's check out the other side. Okay. Yeah, pretty nice and smooth. It's almost like it's not there, but we'll give it a little skim coat.
Right.
Gone.
Erased. The kid never hit the truck with the bike. Okay, so what I'm doing now is addressing that little dent area that we had. You want to get real aggressive with it first so you get a good mechanical bond on the filler we're going to put in. So I hit it with this, the stone, if you will, at first. It's like an 80 grit, so it gets down to the bare metal. Then I'll come back and I'll feather it out with something like a 220. And then I'll get a little finer out with some 400. So you want to start out about a quarter size, then go a little bigger with the 220 and even bigger with the 400 so you get a nice, even, smooth surface.
After blowing everything off, getting a good wipe down again with that wax and degreaser, you know, it's time to add a little bit of filler. We're going to use glaze instead of filler because there's hardly an imperfection there. So I've got my hardener and my glaze, and I'm going to make sure that I work it really good and it's mixed real well. And we've got that 80 grit right there in the center. So all I've got to do is make sure this is looking nice and uniform. I'm ready to come in here, plop some in there like that. I want to push it in, make sure it's got a good bite to it, and pull it across. Now, it's going to shrink as it dries, So I don't need to like perfectly squeegee it across because it'll shrink and then it's gonna still be low. Let it be a little bit high, and that's probably good. I'll let that dry and harden real nice. It's gonna block out real simple. I'll go back and forth, crisscross, blend it out. Then I'm ready to take it over to my painter. Now he's gonna take and just spot this in with primer a little bit so it's all covered, sand it out just like the rest of the hood. Then he's ready for the sealer. Now he's got a little window there. Once it flashes over, then he can go ahead and put the base coat right on top. And from there, he can put the clear on it, and that thing is gonna look pretty shiny blue.
You go, Kev.
Right.
It looks great, man.
Oh, looks good on there. Blends and matches just nice.
Hammer time all gone.
That's right, a little bit extra style. Now speaking of style, now this truck came with some chrome on the grill and the bumpers, but a lot of black pieces everywhere
Black
else.
on the running boards and on the door handles. And I think after a couple weeks, he's decided he wants to take that chrome theme and put it throughout the entire truck.
Yeah, dress up, you know, some of that stuff that just doesn't quite have the pop. And the blue looks really good with the chrome, I gotta admit.
Yeah, you're right. And we got a bunch of stuff from Everything Chrome Parts. So instead of that stock factory looking black grill that may have came on it, they offer a couple cool options for us.
Yeah, now ours came with the chrome version of this, but the Ford trucks also come with the black. Now, if you want to swap out, they've got, you know, the grill you can put on, or just a real easy snap-on version. You just click it on. Looks just like it came from the factory, but you don't have to put on a single screw.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, now this is a cool option too. This looks like the old like Lincoln Blackwood grill. And I think the owner really kind of is liking this one, so we'll put this one back on instead of the original.
Yeah. And check this out, they sent us some Nerf bars. Again, Everything Chrome Parts. Cool part about this is most Nerf bars, you know, end it, they cap it with a big old black plastic
It's like a
chunk.
tube with a plastic cap.
And it always comes off. It always falls out and so forth. So these guys at Everything Chrome Parts had the whole thing chrome. So we'll get this on, get those old stock factory black running boards off, and dress the truck up accordingly the whole way out so we can carry that chrome theme.
Add a little bit of pizzazz, and before you know it, we're ready to give it back to him.
All right.
Right, let's check her out.
Last couple bolts in our Nerf bars. Continue that chrome theme throughout.
Yeah, we got a couple little bolts to tighten up once we get everything kind of squared away. But we're gonna take a break. See you back here in a minute.